After the war ended, the oil-rich lands of the 500-year-old Ottoman Empire were divided up, primarily between England and France. New borders were drawn, and the countries of Iraq and Syria were born. The people who had been living there for generations were betrayed in the promises of post-war independence, a move which would have international ramifications for decades to come. In 1951, the Parliament of Iran elected Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh as the country's new prime minister. Seeking to establish a parliamentary democracy for Iran, Dr. Mossadegh became known as the Iranian George Washington. When he nationalized the oil industry, which had been seized by the British at the end of the First World War, however, he quickly became an enemy of the vast petroleum industries and thus an obstacle to be removed. And so it fell to the CIA to remove Mossadegh and make the oil resources once again safe for Western consumption. Coincidentally, at that time, the CIA was headed by Allen Dulles, an attorney who had previously been representing the Rockefellers' interest in those oil fields.
Mossadegh had been elected premier of Iran, democratically elected. And he'd run on a campaign that said that if he was elected, he would make sure that the oil companies in Iran, the foreign oil companies, shared a fair percentage of their profits with the Iranian people. So once he was elected, he set about fulfilling that promise. And the main company was what today we call BP, and they were very, very powerful in Iran. They did not like what Mossadegh was doing. And at the time, the British government didn't have a real presence in Iran, but the U.S. government did. So there was an alliance made between the British and the Americans and the oil companies that said, we've got to get rid of Mossadegh, even though he's democratically elected. He's standing up to the oil companies. This is a bad trend, and it's not, if it happens in Iran, if he gets away within Iran, it's going to spread all over the Middle East and maybe the world. But Eisenhower was president. Eisenhower was very afraid of having a nuclear war with Russia. We had nuclear weapons, and Iran's right on the Russian border. So Eisenhower didn't want to send in the troops. They came up with this idea of sending in a CIA agent, Kermit Roosevelt, who was Teddy Roosevelt's grandson. And Kermit went into Iran with a few $1 million, and he managed to rally lots of people, what we might call thugs, and pay them to create demonstrations on the streets to make it look as though Mossadegh was not popular in his country. And in fact, he was extremely popular in his country, but it looked as though he wasn't. And they, in essence, initiated a coup and overthrew him, put him under house arrest, and brought the Shah into power. The Shah had been hiding in other Middle Eastern countries, brought him back into power. And of course, we all know today that the Shah was a great friend of oil companies, in fact, of all American companies. I worked for the Shah for quite a number of years back in the 70s. He was a despot, and but very much worked to our advantage. And so out of that, this lesson was learned that you could send an agent, like the CIA agent Kermit Roosevelt, into a country, and it didn't cost you very much, a few $1 million. You didn't risk war, you didn't risk losing American lives, and you could take over a country.